So the team over at AutoBleem has released their next version 0.8. In this video, we're just going to go ahead and take a look at it. I'll explain some of the new features and I'll show you guys how to get it loaded. This is Steve from Restalgia, and let's get started. Alright guys, so we've got our 0.8 release candidate loaded up onto my desktop already. As always, I get these in advance so I can make the videos for launch, so I'm not going to show you where to download it, but as always the links will be in the description down below. So we've got our release candidate version here. We're going to double click on it to open it up, and here it is. We've got pretty much everything that we're going to need. We've got some release notes in there. I've got RetroBoot in there as well. There is an updated RetroBoot, so we are using 0.10, which is really nice. There's a lot of new features for both AutoBleem and RetroBoot, and I do plan on showing you guys everything. The installation is really simple. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my current AutoBleem build. Okay, awesome. So I've got my AutoBleem build on the left and I've got the release candidate on the right. Super simple. We're just going to drag and drop all of these folders right on over. That's going to update AutoBleem, and it's also going to give us the new version of RetroBoot. So we're just going to go ahead and skip over. Before I do that, it is going to ask if we want to replace any of the files. The answer to that, of course, is yes. We're going to replace all the files with the new files. If you are doing this on a Mac, you need to merge those files. Do not replace them. You need to merge them. So we'll go ahead and skip forward. Alright, so that's pretty much done. Before we're going to go ahead and pop this into our PlayStation Classic, there is a feature that I do want to talk about. They've included something called USB game subdirectories. So that's kind of like having folders for your games. For example, if you wanted to consolidate all of your sports titles into a sports folder, this is kind of how you would do it. So it all has to be done right on the USB drive, and it can't be done on the console. You're going to double click on wherever you've got your games. So for example, our PS1 games are going to all be in the games folder. And I should also mention that this is only applicable for PS1 games, and it's only applicable for the PS1 games that you've added onto your USB. It does not work properly with the internal games yet. We've got our games folder, and as you can see, we've got all of our games in here that I've kind of preloaded. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do something really simple. I'm going to create a sports folder, and I'm going to load up maybe 5 or 10 games in there. So all we need to do is we are going to right click, we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call this sports. And then we are actually going to open up that folder, and in here we can create additional folders. So for example, if you wanted to do baseball, basketball, wrestling, whatever it happens to be, you can actually create subfolders within your folders. So what I'll do is I'll load some games into this folder, but then I'm also going to create another folder called wrestling, and I'll just pop all my wrestling games in there as well. So we're going to right click, going to go to new folder, we're going to call this wrestling. Perfect. So now what we need to do is first we're going to hop on over, we're going to find some of our wrestling games. So we've got WWF Attitude all the way down to Warzone. We're going to go ahead and cut those. We're going to find our sports folder that we just created right over here into our wrestling folder, and we're going to paste them here. So all you have to do is literally cut and paste them into the directory you want. As I mentioned, I'm going to throw a couple other sports games into the sports folder, the main sports folder, so that way you can see how that looks as well. So in this case, I just need to find a couple. We're going to grab NBA Jam and NBA Live 2003. We're going to cut those. We're going to hop back over to our sports folder, and we're going to paste them right in here. So that's going to be totally fine. We're going to have our 2 games, NBA Jam, NBA Live 2003, and then within our wrestling folder, we're going to have all of our wrestling games. And of course, you guys can label them anything that you want. So if you don't want to do sports, you want to do platforming, or if you want to do adventure games, or if you want to do RPGs, you can do all of that. And of course, this isn't going to affect where they locate on the main display. This is just going to allow you to look at everything all at once and then actually filter through by the folder, and you can view only those games. So aside from that, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to back on out. And actually, really quickly before we go on, the nice thing about this system that they're doing here is if you actually have duplicate games, for example, within our games folder, we had our sports folder we created, and let's say you put the wrestling games in both the sports folder and then you created a subfolder for the wrestling games, it's only going to show it one time. It's not going to double up. So that is a nice feature to have. The other thing that we're going to talk about before we pop into our PlayStation Classic is the themes folder. So we now have our themes folder here with a bunch of the themes. What they've gone ahead and done is they've consolidated all of our themes. So the themes are no longer going to be split between this folder here, and there was another themes folder inside of the AutoBleem /bin /AutoBleem /themes folder. So they've kind of consolidated everything right to this themes folder. So if you download any of the theme packs online, you can actually just load them right up into this folder right here, and you'll have access to them almost immediately. So that is nice and handy as well. So they've just kind of cleaned up the build itself in terms of what is on the USB. So that's the first major change. Obviously the USB game subdirectories, the consolidated themes, those are really nice things to have. So we're going to go ahead and exit out of here, and we're going to pop our current AutoBleem build into our PlayStation Classic, and I'm going to get that loaded up for you guys. Alright, so here we are on our PlayStation Classic. We now have our new version of AutoBleem up and running. Everything seems to look like it's running properly. Now I've gone ahead and I've already gone into the options, turned off the background music, just so that way you guys don't have to listen to it back there, and it doesn't mess up with the background music that I typically throw in my videos anyways. But essentially, as soon as you load it up, it's going to say, especially if you created those folders, it's going to say, hey, there's been some changes, we want to rescan all of the games. That's totally fine. Allow it to rescan everything, and it'll be nice and quick. Once you're done scanning, it'll take you back to this screen here. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hop straight into AutoBleem, and I'm just going to show you guys how those USB game subdirectories work, or those quote-unquote folders. I like to call this folder support, but it is kind of like a non-visual version of folder support. So it's definitely a step between what people are hoping for or what people originally envisioned. This is just going to kind of be the entry level to it. So we're obviously going to build on this, but in terms of what we've got, this is actually a really good starting point. So we're going to press start to enter AutoBleem, and we've got all of our games here. As you can see, everything is listed in there. So as you guys know, if you press the select button, it's going to filter through the different options in terms of how you can display your games. So right now I'm showing only USB games, I'm showing favorited games, I'm showing the RetroArch playlist games here, and then of course we're going back to all of our games. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to filter over to the section where it shows all USB game directories, and it's only going to show the games you've previously loaded. You're going to press and hold the L2 button and then press select. And what that's going to then do is give us all of our folders. So as you can see, our subdirectories are there. You've got our sports subdirectory, and then even within that, you've got a wrestling game. So as you guys remember, I threw 5 wrestling games into the wrestling folder, 2 into the sports folder. So what the sports folder is going to do is it's going to show us anything that's within that folder and anything within any subfolders as well. So if you click on the sports, you're going to have not only the 2 basketball games we threw in there, but we're going to have access to all the different wrestling games as well. And of course, if you want to just filter straight into the wrestling games, you press and hold the L2 button and select again, and you can jump right into it as well. So that is a really neat feature. If you want to go back, you just go back to your subdirectory and go back to your main USB games. And they're all here now. Everything in terms of that seems to work properly. You can access all of your save states, you can load games, exit games, all of those sort of things are all proper, and they do work now. Another big thing that's been changed as well is now we can actually delete games from within the game manager. So if we go back to our main menu and we hold our L1 button and enter into our game manager, we've got all of our games here. So if I go to Ape Escape here, you can see along the bottom of the page. So if I press the square button here, it's actually going to allow me to delete the game from the console. And if I hit square, it's going to ask me if I am certain that I want to do that. Obviously in this case I don't want to, but if I did, I'd press the X button to confirm the deletion of this game. That's a nice little feature that they've got that in there. It's not something that you'll accidentally press the square button and go, oh no, I didn't mean to delete it. You actually have a confirmation, so that actually helps to prevent any mistakes as well. One last feature that they've got in here, now I don't think I actually have my favorites set up in RetroArch. If I press the L2 and select the button to open up my RetroBoot playlists, you'll actually be able to set a specific playlist for favorites. So if you've got a RetroArch playlist that has a bunch of different consoles in it and they are all listed as a playlist, you'll actually be able to see that here as well. So that's pretty much it for the latest version of AutoBleem. Now, as I mentioned, we do have the new version of RetroBoot, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up so you guys can see that. And I'm currently using my PlayStation Classic controller just so that way you guys know. But as you guys can see, we are currently running in the bottom left-hand corner RetroBoot, which is running RetroArch version 1.8.1. So that's really nice. We've got the latest version there. The big changes here are going to be on our core set. So we actually have the new KM core set. And there's a few things that they've been working on. One of the big ones is Sega Saturn. So a lot of people have been asking about Sega Saturn. Now, keep in mind, this is not perfect. It certainly has a lot of work yet to be done, but when you're getting into Saturn right over here, you want the KM_Yabaus, I think it's called Yabaus or Yabos Extreme core. So you'll see the Extreme core at the end. That's what you're going to want. So you've got your stock core, and then you've got the one with Extreme at the end. That's going to be the one that's been worked on. There's also going to be the Naomi Dreamcast core as well that's been worked on. And finally, we've also got our PlayStation Portable, the PPSS PP Extreme core as well. So keep in mind, again, not everything is going to run properly. There's still going to be a lot of issues. The console itself isn't super powerful, so there's going to be a lot of games that don't run properly, but they have optimized it a little bit, so you may have some additional playability. So one last small feature that they've gone ahead and done, and this is something that I absolutely love, and it may have actually been old, but I just realized it really quickly before we end the video. If you press the power button on the PlayStation Classic now, it'll actually say press it again to quit, and if you do press it again, it'll take you right back to your main boot menu screen where you can select between AutoBoot and RetroBoot or RetroArch or any of your other options. So that is absolutely amazing. I do love that that's there. I don't believe that that was there before, so I think this is a new feature, but please correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below. But that's more or less it, guys. So we've got our new RetroBoot version 1.8.1. We've got the new version of AutoBleem running 0.8 with a few of the new features, including the subfolder directory or the subdirectory folders for your games. And that's pretty much it. So be sure to jump down into the description, grab the link in order to get this thing downloaded and installed on your PlayStation Classic. If you guys have any questions, as always, you can leave them in the comment section down below. And if you haven't joined the Discord for AutoBleem, I highly recommend it. There's a ton of guys in there that can help with support. Lots of awesome themes that are being developed, and they kind of get showed off and displayed in there. So if you guys haven't joined, please be sure to do that. But that's all I've got for you for this video. Please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and I will talk to you guys again real soon.